Hello and welcome back to my channel. I am so sorry that it's been so long since my last video. I am working on a new Autistic Reviews episode, but it's going to take a bit longer. In the meantime, I thought I could talk about an autism related topic. This might be a little old news by now, but a couple weeks ago at Comic-Con in Motor City, Michigan, Tom Kenny, the voice actor for Spongebob Squarepants, was a guest, and he talked a bit about SpongeBob and autism. At the Comic-Con event, Tom Kenny told the audience a story about how one time, at an event, an autistic fan came up to him and asked, "Is SpongeBob autistic? Is SpongeBob himself autistic as a character?" And he replied, "Yes, of course he is." You know what? That's his superpower, the same way it's your superpower.
Really identify with SpongeBob, and because SpongeBob's kind of on the spectrum too as a character. And this last con that I did in South Texas, in McAllen, Texas, it was the first time I'd ever been asked this question. A person who was, obviously on the spectrum, came up to me and said, "Hey, I have a question for you, Tom Kenny. Is SpongeBob autistic?"
Wow.
Is SpongeBob himself autistic? And I said, "Yes, of course." I said, "Of course he is." And I said, you know what? That's his superpower. The same way it's your superpower. The same way it's Jenna's superpower.
Now, I'm not too fond of the autism is your superpower narrative, and I know other autistic people aren't either, but that's honestly a topic for another video. It's kind of he's a little confused, but he's got this spirit type thing. I love how he's supportive of the idea of SpongeBob being autistic, instead of getting defensive and shutting it down, like some other actors might. He might not know terribly much about autism, but he notices how much SpongeBob as a character means to a lot of autistic people, and he chooses to acknowledge that and give validation to the idea that autistic people see his character as being autistic too. And honestly, that's so refreshing and nice to see. So major props to Tom Kenny. Now, people are treating this like it's something brand new, but Tom Kenny has talked about this before. As recently as 2017, Tom Kenny had an interview with the website Bleeding at Cool, where he talked about how much autistic people relate to SpongeBob and why he thinks that is. In the interview, he said, "I think they like that character. He doesn't have a filter, he does what he wants. It comes up a lot actually. The autistic thing comes up, like at Comic-Cons and things like that. And the idea of autistic people constantly asking him this, that SpongeBob being autistic is something that just keeps coming up for him when he does these events, is really interesting. It really shows just how much we relate to the character, and that so many autistic people can see themselves in him." Then he says, "I know autistic kids fixate on certain things in certain shows, but there's something about SpongeBob, and it's not just that SpongeBob is bigger than other shows." So just a note here that what he's referring to is a special interest. And then Roger Bumpass added that it might have to do with the fact that there's a simplicity to the show, not only in the gags and the words, but to the colors and the drawings that might appeal to autistic kids, or adults also. And just a note here, I love that he makes a point to include autistic adults in this. A lot of people tend to just talk about children when talking about autism, and adults are just completely forgotten about in the conversation. So it's nice to see it mentioned. Now, this is all the main point of the interview, taken from a USA Today article. But I've seen the Bleeding Cool interview in full, and it has some stuff I'm a little iffy on, like Tom Kenny saying that everyone's a little bit autistic. Which, no, not true. You either are autistic or you're not. But I'm willing to overlook things like that because it's obvious that he's an ally, and he cares and his heart is in the right place. He just isn't very well informed about certain things and the community's stance on things. And apparently, that's not even the first time Tom Kenny has talked about SpongeBob and autism. On Mark Maron's WTF podcast in 2012, he had this to say: "I don't know what there is in that show that talks to kids on this autism spectrum, but more than any other cartoons, because SpongeBob as a character is a little autistic, obsessed with his job, very hardworking, gets really, really deep into something. Once again, ignoring the little artistic things, these are all good points. And wow, Tom Kenny apparently has talked about SpongeBob and autistic people relating to him a surprising amount. I kind of love it. Every couple years, he just has to remind people, autistic people love this character, and it's because he's a lot like them." This would have been the end of this story, but Tom Kenny actually had some follow-up remarks about a week later. He said, "I'm not a medical doctor, and SpongeBob is an imaginary character, so I'm not really qualified to speak. But yeah, a young person with autism who is on the spectrum said to me," basically he was asking me, "I'm like this, is SpongeBob like me?" And I said, "Yeah, he is. SpongeBob's a lot like you. You guys are the same and you're both awesome." And then added, "That was a nice moment and I never meant for it to go public or anything. It was just kind of this private moment that I had with a fan. But it seems like it's been empowering and helpful to people out there." So basically he's reiterating that he didn't expect for this to go viral. It was just a nice moment with a fan, but a lot of people related to it. So what do I think? Well, as someone who's personally a big fan of SpongeBob, I 100% see SpongeBob as autistic. Maybe I'll do an Autistic Reviews episode on a specific SpongeBob episode. I'm thinking the season 3 episode where SpongeBob throws a house party, but I'll say for now that SpongeBob as a character has a lot of autistic traits. For one, he gets deeply obsessed with things to the point that he'll info dump about them and list off specific facts about them. I would consider things like Mermaid Man or the Krusty Krab to be special interest for him. He can be very particular about things, such as in the episode The Bully, where he's trying to find out the way that he wants to arrange his pencils on his desk. And it happens often enough that I wouldn't consider it a coincidence that another character will say something sarcastically and SpongeBob won't catch it and takes it literally instead. I'm sure if I looked I could find many examples of SpongeBob doing things that could be considered stimming too. And let's be honest, SpongeBob does not have the best social skills. He's very socially awkward. A lot of the time he just doesn't know that something he's about to say isn't socially appropriate. And something I rather like or rather find relatable is how a lot of the time SpongeBob can just really annoy other people without even trying, but he's almost never able to pick up on it. As an example, the conversation between SpongeBob and the cashier in the house party episode. On SpongeBob's end, he just thinks he's having a friendly conversation with the cashier, but the cashier is just very annoyed with SpongeBob and wants him to leave, and he doesn't pick up on it. And you can use like half of SpongeBob's conversations with Squidward as an example. He can also be kind of change-averse, especially when it comes to things he really cares about, like his job. Whenever something changes at work that interferes with SpongeBob being able to do things the way he's always done them, he usually hates it and tries to get things changed back. Like the episode Bossy Boots, where Pearl comes in to work at the Krusty Krab. SpongeBob is initially fine with the changes when he thinks they're just aesthetic, but when he learns he won't be able to make Krabby Patties anymore, he gets very upset and tries to change things back to how they were before. Similarly, in the episode Krusty Dogs, SpongeBob comes up with a new menu item that's comparable to a hot dog, but gets upset when Mr. Krabs wants to only sell Krusty Dogs from now on. Or Larry the Floor Manager, where Larry the Lobster is temporarily in charge of the Krusty Krab. It makes a lot of changes, and SpongeBob hates it. Also, something I find really relatable about SpongeBob is that, like me, he can be very gullible and people can take advantage of him because of this. Like in the Season 1 episode Rockin' Small, where Plankton tricks SpongeBob into clearing people off the beach by pretending to teach him how to be more assertive. Or in Fun, where Plankton tricks SpongeBob into believing he's changed and wants to be his friend to get the formula. Well, the entire situation with the Strangler. Okay, SpongeBob, we both have to work on not always taking people at their word. Sometimes they have ulterior motives. And finally, a while ago, I actually made a video examining the first SpongeBob movie through the lens of it being a metaphor for the infantilization of autistic people in society. If you want to watch that video, you can click through to it at the end of this video, and it will also be included in the video description. So anyway, I just think it's neat that the actual voice actor for SpongeBob has been so supportive about this. Now, are they going to have SpongeBob show off his new autism diagnosis to his friends in the next episode? That'd be amazing, but probably not. As far as I'm concerned, SpongeBob is autistic, regardless of whether it's said in the actual show. And it's just nice to know that Tom Kenny supports that interpretation of the character. But what do you guys think? Did Tom Kenny's statement mean anything to you? Do you personally think SpongeBob is autistic? Let me know in the comments down below. Until next time, goodbye!